We have rescued princesses from evil villains, saved the world from a certain doom, and embarked on crusades of epic proportions, all for $59.99. What would happen if video game prices went up, and should they? There are some people out there that believe they should or will, including news, press, and researchers. One such individual actually claims that publishers like EA are indeed undercharging us. An hour of video game content is one of the cheapest forms of entertainment, he says. Play a $60 game for 60 hours and we're talking about $1 for every 1 hour of entertainment. Unfortunately, real life isn't dictated by such cut and dry math. I think a lot of us would agree that you can't put a price tag on art, and you can't value the time spent in a game equally. You can't compare video games to other forms of media either, because everything's different. Nor can you normalize the time people spend in games, as we all play video games in our own unique ways. For reasons about to be discussed, our industry has agreed on the very consistent price tag, and ceiling for that matter, of $60 for a new AAA video game. Would you be okay paying $80 for a new video game today? I'm about to show you if you'll soon have to. I love video games, and I'll pay fair market price for them. Why hasn't that price tag changed much, though, in 20 or so years? That's the big question. So we all know that things get more expensive every year. It's called inflation, and we accept it because wages rise over the course of time, whether it's the federal minimum wage or yearly compensation at the workplace. In theory, we should be making more money every single year. But video game prices don't go up, so what the hell? Well, it's because video games are expendable leisure items. One of the biggest fallacies right now is when someone says, well, a video game should be $80 or $90 when you take into account that inflation, but that's not a true statement whatsoever. The reality is the index and the CPI for entertainment items like video games has not been rising at the same rate whatsoever as commodity items. In fact, video game prices might be in danger of going the opposite way. Much of that can be attributed to two things, one being system lifecycle. The current generation of console hardware is now about 4 years old and has matured to a point where everybody is kind of wondering when the next big thing is actually coming. It is historically proven that during the maturing and decline phases of a console, the prices of games are at an all-time low. As the cost of a console drops, it brings more people in. This allows more wiggle room to play with the game prices and drop them, as that will lead to more increased overall sales volumes, which can offset the losses from the discounted prices easily.
This is a tighter squeeze than the caves west of Siwa.
Secondly, and the bigger issue here, development costs have been rising. In the late 90s, the typical cost for a Sony-developed game was $1 million and it sold for $49.99. Today, the estimated cost to make a game is about $7 to $9 million, and we still pay the same amount for it. Games have gotten bigger and require more code and more manpower, studios more lavish, wages much higher. And given the steep competition from the freemium and cheap mobile gaming markets, the pressure to produce the highest quality games requires keeping wages really high and competitive among game makers. The competition has pushed some developers to the extremes.
I need a car.
Well, it is a joke. Joel needs a car.
It's not uncommon for a game dev to have a multi-million-dollar motion cap studio or hire Kevin Spacey to voice a game character for God knows how much. Add in lavish marketing campaigns and the skyrocketing costs for trade shows and new technology, and you could quickly start to see how everything can get out of control very fast. I'm sure you guys know that Rockstar knows all about this, as it cost them $300 million to develop Grand Theft Auto V. Video games are getting more expensive to make every single day. There's no escaping that. But the danger of high-cost video game development is all washed away, like the tide of a rising ocean, when we consider the other side of the coin, sales. As we know, profit is calculated by subtracting cost, which is what we just discussed, from revenue. As long as the revenue side of the equation is higher, a game will always make money. And since we know that the cost side is very high these days, we've got to have high revenues too. The good news is that consumer spending is at an all-time high, and the ability to cash in on this trend has never been more real than now. Of course, this graph accounts for every gamer under the sun, but the message remains: there are more people demanding video games than ever before. Part of that is most certainly due to the fact that our culture has changed. People are more accepting towards video games. This giant boom in popularity has allowed publishers to cash in on their IP, including Activision, Ubisoft, and of course our friends EA. They have gotten very, very good at chopping up and maximizing how much money they can make with each game. The beautiful thing about our industry is that it keeps growing, which allows any and all games the opportunity to flourish. I'm not so sure that these opportunities of today existed 20 years ago, but they sure do right now. More gamers, more money, and more success for every single game should they find and earn it. There's really no need to increase prices right now. The additional revenue has offset the rising cost of development, ensuring the stabilization of the $60 price tag, at least for now. The video game industry is the most amazing medium there is, but building the best games isn't easy. I would argue that video game prices are not in danger of rising whatsoever, despite popular opinion, but there may come a point where the popularity of traditional video games dies down in favor of mobile gaming even more than it already has, where companies can't afford to lean on budgets the size of the moon to a space where the margin for error has much more costly implications. There are so many shortcuts publishers can take, so many disingenuous methods for extrapolating extra money from us when it's not warranted. Cutting corners isn't something we're willing to forgive anymore, though. As consumers, we deserve to have our money fulfilled with honest, complete, and fantastic video game design at fair market rate. Given these facts, I feel it's imperative that we support high-quality games. By voting with our wallets, we can create a system where companies don't get a free pass, where they must fight for our money and earn every single sale. This would force them down a competitive road with each other, where the only guarantee is to push out the best possible game. Not just a money grab, or a service, or a product, or a familiar IP that guarantees success, but a good video game that earns it every step of the way.